The term annotated bibliography sometimes strikes fear in the hearts of students, but it need not. Last semester, my students found that this was a very useful tool on the way to their essay and research paper. In fact, they told me, you should make us do this with every paper because it helps us to sort through the data. We have this voluminous amount of data that we pulled out of our research and we don't know what to do with it. So I'm going to show you a method that's different from what you may have done in the past. Annotated bibliographies are often used by instructors as a replacement for a paper. It's a way of showing that you know how to do research. In this case, we have already done a bit of research and we're just trying to grapple with that information and figure out how we can best organize it. I've largely used the MLA system, but I have tweaked it to suit the purposes for which we're going to use it. We'll start in the obvious place with our citation at the top. Directly below that, you will list in bullet form the key points you think are useful in this article. This is not a summary of the whole article. Notice I say key points related to thesis. Think about what it is you want to prove in this paper and only pull out the parts of the article that are related to that. This is different from when we did our clipping and tagging of data because there we were cutting and pasting or copying and pasting portions of the original document. Here, you're just going to say this in your own words. For example, in this source, we found a section where the text told us that based on the study, they found that farmers who used green methods actually increased their profitability. So instead of having some long quote, I would simply write green farming equals higher profits. That's all I need. This is a memory jog. Later I will go back to my notes and find that original piece and maybe talk about it in more detail. This is just to tell me what was in that document that I think might be useful for my paper. I would say that normally you're going to have between 3 and 6 key point bullets. You don't need more than that. The next piece, this is very important, is to look objectively at the source to see how good that source is. Is there any bias on behalf of the author? Some authors have a particular expertise and they only look at the issue from one side. You need to be able to describe that. Or it may become obvious that the author has an agenda in writing this particular article, and you need to be able to describe that because you'll have to know in handling it in your paper that you're dealing with information that isn't particularly objective. You also have to look at how authoritative the information is. For example, if you're looking at a news source, you could have secondhand information there. That's also the case with information that comes from .org sites. And you might sometimes have information that's an opinion. There are lots of opinion pieces that you can find on .org and .edu and news sites. Someone's opinion certainly is not academic evidence. And then finally, you have to look at how comprehensive the information is. Does it address the issue from all angles, or is it only addressing one side? You can still use it if it's one-sided, but you have to be aware that you need other information to counterbalance that. And then finally, we're going to move on to the last step, and that's just thinking about how you might use the information in your paper. This is very, very brief. You might conclude that, this information I'm not really going to use as evidence. This is just going to be for background. Or you might say, this is useful background that I'm going to put in my introduction as a scene setter to help my audience understand the issue, but I'm not necessarily going to use it as evidence. Or you might say, this is great evidence, I'm going to use this somewhere in the body of my paper. Or finally, you might say, this goes against my thesis, but it's useful because I have to show the counter argument. So I'm going to use this as my counter argument, but I'm also going to try to prove that this person is wrong. So I hope this is very helpful to you. It's not as scary as you might have thought it was, and I hope that the exercise will be useful to you as you move forward in writing your essay.